Hey everyone! Welcome to another fabulous Sales Hacker webinar. My name is Katie Ray. We have the one and only Josh Braun and the one and only Ryan O'Hara here with us today, and they're going to be running this ship. I'm going to be holding on for dear life. This is going to be so much stinking fun. We're going to learn so much. While everyone's coming in, say hello in the chat. Tell us who you are, where you're coming from. If you run marathons or not, Josh may want to know that. I'm not sure. I don't run. That's not my thing. But this is going to be so much stinking fun. And I already see some fabulous people. Love me some Zero Fox peeps. So excited to have you here. And yeah, I'll let you guys introduce yourself, even though it's not really needed, but go for it.
So I just want to do a little preamble for people. First off, technically speaking, we're doing a two-part webinar. The first part today is going to be going over stuff that Josh has on best practices for writing a cold email. The instructions that we give you today, we want to actually have you make cold emails afterward. And then next week, Josh and I are going to go through them. You'll get an email for information on how to get there, but we're going to actually go through the emails. So listen to the stuff that's happening today, and we're going to go through what's good next week. And I'm really excited about this, Josh, because I have things that I tell people about cold email, and you have things that you've done. We've done a bunch of these things where we're like, we critique cold emails and stuff, but like a lot of them end up not being the best. So like one of the things Josh and I were talking about behind the scenes is like, can we show people what good looks like? And that's kind of the goal here today is like, let's show them what a good song looks like, a good email, a good banger, I guess. This is like the greatest hits CD instead of having to go through those albums full of filler.
Yeah, I love that. And so we're going to show you what good is, but more importantly, to Ryan's point, a lot of times people will watch a webinar or they'll read a LinkedIn post or they'll listen to a podcast, and it's satisfying. It scratches an itch. It's fun to listen to people talk about stuff, but watching stuff does not change an outcome. Doing stuff does. So what Ryan and I wanted to do is flip the script a little bit and have you actually do something with the information that you're going to learn. So I do over IQ, because it's the doing that's going to change the outcome. We're going to define what good is. We're going to show you a ton of examples. I'm going to give a shameless plug at the end for 30 seconds. You are then going to write emails now that you know what good is, and then you'll get Ryan and I's take on it so that you can actually get your reps in. Because in order to get good at skiing down the mountain, you got to just get your reps in. And Ryan's been gracious enough to be able to provide some coaching for you so that you can, now that you know what good is, get coached on good. So that's our intent today. The information is 20% of this. We're going to go through it, but it's the 80% doing that's going to change the outcome. And again, our motto here and our theme for this session is I do over IQ. So we hope that you take us up on this experience today.
One last thing I want to add too for people, just to remember this. Prospecting is the way that you do your outreach is super important today. In fact, there's been data. I actually think Outreach put out some data about this in Sales Hacker. Average cold email response rate on a reply is less than 1%. Average cold call connect rate is less than 3%. Every time that we do outreach and we do something that's not optimal or not perfect or speaking to the person, we're teaching prospects to tune us out. And we can reverse that trend by listening to some of the stuff that Josh is talking about today. That's my roll up for it.
Yeah, and more importantly, not listening to it.
Yeah.
Not just listening to it.
So
more importantly, actually doing it.
So
because oftentimes I talk to people and I said, have you seen that webinar? They'll say yes. And I say, are you doing it? And they say no, or they've done it once. So our hope is that you actually do it today.
And again, house cleaning stuff, recording will be available afterward, and use the chat for combos. Let's jump into the joy of cold email.
So let me actually start with a story. This is a true story. And I want you to tell me the moral of the story in the chat. And John, you can help me out as people are shouting this out. Several years ago, I am in the mall with my wife. I do not need anything. The only reason I'm in the mall is to accompany my wife because we were going to have dinner afterwards. To kill some time while she shopped, I walked into a fit to run store. I did not need anything. If the store associate said to me, what brings you in today? I would have said nothing. If she said, can I help you? I would have said, I'm good. She didn't do any of those things. She looked down at my sneakers. She said, are you a runner? I said, yes. She said, what distance? I said, marathon. She said, have you ever had a running gait test? I said, what are you talking about? And moments later, I am on a treadmill in the store running on a treadmill. She freezes the frame and she says this, Josh, have you noticed that your feet are overpronating? And if you run in sneakers that are not made for pronated feet, you can get injured on long distance runs. And if you'd like, we can check your sneakers to see if they're made for pronated feet. And 6 minutes later, I spent $190 on new sneakers and fucking insoles. What is the moral of that story in the chat?
Come on, guys, jump in. You got it. Take some stabs. Ask the right questions is one of them, Josh. Didn't realize you have a problem.
Who said that? Who said that?
Jenna. Jenna said didn't realize you have a problem.
Yeah. Who else? Anything else coming in?
Bring value to the customer.
Too generic. Don't know what that means. Everyone says bring value. Someone. Let's get more specific.
She created the need. You know.
Who said that?
That was Jill Vandergriff.
Jill and Jenna, you're on the right track. The magic prospecting skill is to shine a light on problems that people don't know they have or opportunities they can capture. I call it poking the bear. And it's going to be a consistent theme in this story as we start to write emails. Everybody is running today that you're reaching out to. They're all wearing sneakers. But what they might not know is that they're overpronating. What they might not know is terrible things lurking around the corner that can hurt them. So we're going to poke the bear and provoke and illuminate through a question that's going to get people to think differently about how they're getting the job done today. And when people think differently, they subconsciously think to themselves, I'm not sure, what do you mean? And they lean forward and respond to learn more. So prospecting is about poking the bear. It begs the question, how do you poke bears and not get hurt? I'm going to show you. Does anybody have any idea in the chat who this person is? I know Ryan probably does, but does anybody else in the chat have any idea who this guy is and what he does?
Yeah, they're coming in. People know.
People know?
Bob Roster saying tons.
Does anyone know what Ryan, you know what Bob Ross is famous for? What his deal was?
Well, he used to do like that painting show and explain how to paint really beautiful, complicated things, but he'd break it down to be really simple.
Yeah, one of the things about Bob Ross that was unique is you would actually get your easel out with him and you would paint with him. So when I was reminded of Bob Ross, because my mom used to watch him and paint with him when I was young, I said, what happens if I just did like Bob Ross style, the joy of emailing, like he did Joy of Painting. His name of his show was Joy of Painting. So what I'm going to do is actually walk you through my process step by step, as if I've never worked at a company before, as if I don't know anything about the product, and I'm going to show you why it doesn't even matter. And we're going to start with a blank canvas. In order to start with a blank canvas, we need to understand what piques someone's interest. And there's no better way to illustrate this than by me sharing with you something called an infomercial. I'm dating myself here. But infomercials were these famous things that happened in the 80s that they used to show that got people to buy products. And they always had a formula. So I want you to watch a minute or so of this ad. And I want you to think about what's the formula they're using. What are they starting with? How do they start talking about this to build up curiosity? And then what do they do after it? The formula consists of two things. See if you can figure out what it is. What are they starting with? And then what are they ending with? Here we go. Let me see if I can play this commercial. Okay.
Have you ever struggled to get out of the car? Does back or knee pain make it hard? Do you push with your arm when you try to stand? Or ask someone to give you a hand? Then let us help you out with the incredible new Car Cane. Now you can get in and out of your car with ease. This new portable handle locks instantly into the door latches of any car. Simply open your door and snap it on. Car Cane locks into place and will not move. In fact, Car Cane's forged steel construction can hold 350 pounds. Amazing! Then, Car Cane unlocks and stores away easily in the door or glove box. If you are recovering from an injury or suffer from back pain, knee pain, or hip pain, you need the Car Cane. And
okay, what was the formula? Anyone see it?
So people in chat, start with the pain and with the solution to pain.
Yeah, right. So there's always a before. Like, what was terrible about how people are getting the job done today? Remember, everyone's running. Everyone's trying to get out of the car. Nobody that you reach out to is not getting the job done today. They're getting it done the best way they know how. This guy's getting out of the car. It's the best way he knows how to get out of the car. I'm running the best way I know how. All things that suck have an implication of why it sucks. So when people can't get out of the car, something terrible happens as a result of that. And then there's always an awesome afterwards. So let's actually go through this with the car cane, right? So as Ryan mentioned, and as you guys probably mentioned in the chat, here's what some of the things that were problematic, that this person was just living with because it was the only way he knew to get the job done. He's struggling to get out of the car. Back or knee pain is making it hard. He has to push out with his arm when it takes a stand or ask someone to give you a hand. Now, here's the question in the chat. It's a tough question. Very few people get this. Why does that suck? Problems always suck. What's the implication of that problem? What terrible, no good, very bad thing happens to that elderly gentleman when all those problems on the left-hand side happen? I call this twisting the knife.
So Megan said in chat, they lose their independence.
Bam. If we were playing Family Feud, that would be 85 points. Megan, awesome rock star job, right? Losing the independence and injury. And what's better? Getting out of the car independently, not getting injured, right? So when we're writing cold emails, and I'm going to share with you this framework on how I do it, I want you to keep that in mind because we're going to be writing emails kind of the same way. Why does this work? Because sales is all about the contrast. The terrible thing that happened before and what's possible tomorrow to make me more awesome. Okay, so now let's watch me paint. Here's the blank slate, and we're going to pick any random company, and I'm going to pick Matillion on purpose because most people probably have no idea what they are, and I wanted to make this hard, and I wanted to make it technical. Remember, my challenge is, can I write a good cold email for a company that has no idea what they do if I'm a brand new SDR without knowing anything about the product? Because the product really doesn't matter until there's a problem someone can relate to. So here's my process. We're going to now, the joy of painting, here's the easel, and step one is this. I'm going to show you two different ways to do it. Very simple, very slowly. Way number one is this. Matillion sells to data analytics people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up Google. And I'm going to type in name of persona, data analytics, and I'm going to type in the word challenges in 2021. And what's going to come up is a bunch of stuff. And I'm going to click on the first couple links. And you're going to see something that says the biggest analytics challenges. And notice it's always going to say challenges with an S because there's always more than one. This article is that there actually is about 5 of them. And each of these challenges is going to be a separate email, one idea per. Now, I don't understand what this stuff is saying, but I know that it's a challenge. And I know that it's in a quote, which means someone's actually saying it in this ICP that I want to be able to target. So you'll notice some of these things that are the equivalent of the person not being able to get out of the car, getting all the data together, single format, can't rationalize it. It's not harmonious. I spend 90% of my time working with data to get it in. It sucks. I don't have time to do analysis. I'm just a data monkey. Like it's the exact same before version of the infomercial. Now that I have this, and I'm just going to take one of these 5, it's the same thing for all 5. This is really sort of all I need to start writing my email, as well as what changes for the better afterwards. Here's the good part. The after version is always the opposite version of the before version. Don't overthink it. Can't get out of the car? Now I can get out of the car. Have acne-riddled skin? Now I don't have acne-riddled skin. Don't overcomplicate it. Spend 90% of my time doing this? Spend 10% of my time doing this. It's all about the contrast. 10% less time doesn't mean anything until I knew it took 90% of my time before. The car cane commercial, just seeing someone get out of the car wouldn't have had the same pop if you didn't see them struggling before. Just seeing the person with the 6-pack abs wouldn't have had the same impact unless you saw him or her overweight. It's the transformation, it's the contrast. So now let's take this down. I'm going to teach you a framework that I call the 4T. The reason it's called the 4T is that it has only 4 sentences. Not 5, not 6, not 8. Each sentence starts with the letter T. And it's going to be personal, but not personalized. What do I mean by that? It's for all of the people like this person that share this common attribute. All people doing marathons. All people that are elderly trying to get out of the car. So we're going to niche it down, and that's what's going to make it stick. But we're not going to go into individual LinkedIn profiles for this example, because sometimes that data at the personalized level can be forced, and it can be sometimes hard to find. So what we're going to do is write it a personal way. So the first sentence is truth. What do I mean by that? What is something that's universally true about these people? There's lots of ways to write this sentence. So for instance, in the marathon one with the running, Josh, Miami Marathon in 8 weeks. That's a true statement. If I was biking, Josh, 78 degrees in Boca Raton, Florida, perfect biking weather. If I was a landscape company and a hurricane came ripping through Boca, it might say, Josh, I'd imagine your landscaping got pretty torn up by Hurricane Irma. These are truths about the person's situation. There's lots of ways to write this. I'm going to show you a bunch of different examples. So this one is, read that you guys are moving to Snowflake. That's just a true statement that maybe you read. Or you might say something like, it's Q4 and I would imagine you have a lot of reports you have to run. That's a true statement about people in Q4 or Q3. The next sentence is what's called an illumination question. And the purpose of it, just like the treadmill example, is to get people to think differently about how they're getting the job done today. We want to evoke this response. I'm not sure, what do you mean? I use this on cold calls too. They're neutral questions, they're not leading questions. They typically start with, how are you dealing with? How are you balancing? How are you going about? They just get people to think differently. Notice they don't sound salesy because I'm not leading anyone anywhere. So how are you dealing with getting all your data together into a single format that can easily be rationalized? Now, where did I get that from? I lifted it from the customer. I lifted it from the types of struggles that these people are having. So in the example of the marathon, Josh, how are you dealing with ensuring you're staying upright so you don't get injured on long distance runs due to overpronation? What do you mean? Same kind of idea. The next sentence is what's called third-party validation. So several months ago, I was in Boulder, Colorado. I was on Pearl Street. There was one restaurant with a line out the door. That's the restaurant I wanted to go to. When I see a lot of people there, I want to kind of follow in kind. So what we're doing is we're showing how someone like them is kicking more ass. And we're going to contrast it from the before and the after. So Acme is using Matillion to harmonize data. That's what they want. Look at that. The data up at the above that we see there, the data that we have isn't what I call harmonious. Well, what is the opposite of that? Harmonizing. Do I know what that means? Not exactly. Doesn't really matter, right? Reducing analyst time from working with 91%, there you see it over there, 90%, to 12%. That's out of a Matillion case study. Something someone else is doing to get out of the car independently. That's called third-party credibility. And then finally, the last sentence, where I'm not asking for someone's time because that's a big ask. I'm gauging interest by asking a yes or no question. I call it like a low friction, low commitment ask. And I'm using a secret word here that I teach people all the time, which is no rush. Now, can anyone in the chat tell me why the heck I would ever say no rush if I'm trying to book meetings? Why would I take away urgency? Does anyone have any idea, John?
Someone said diffuse pressure?
Yeah. Diffuse the pressure because pressure is created when we're moving too fast. People are afraid of salespeople. They have commission breath. So we're kind of leaning back. And when you take the pressure away in an email or on a cold call, we use words like not sure if it's a fit, no rush, but is this worth exploring? More people lean forward. Okay, let's go through a couple more examples. Okay, a different approach. Instead of Googling top challenges is to go to your company's website. People like Ryan have spent a tremendous amount of time making what I think is the greatest resource in the world for salespeople that is often overlooked. So if I'm a day one Dozuki SDR and I don't know anything about the product, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go right over here to the company page and I'm going to go to customer success stories, customer testimonial videos, case studies. And here is one by this company called Johnsonville. Now, again, I'm not exactly sure what these guys do or what happens, but these guys make sausages. Johnsonville makes sausages. They got a bunch of machines to make sausages with. Let's listen to this guy's infomercial, because all testimonial videos are kind of like mini infomercials. And let's see if you guys can glean two things that sucked before they switched over to Dozuki. Here we go.
We make a lot of sausage, which ultimately means that a small mistake can add up really quickly. And so it's just really important for us and really critical to make sure that our operators have all the information that they need to be successful at their fingertips. Before Dozuki, finding the information the operator needed was a lengthy process. They had to go out, find a computer, and then try and get through the document management system, which wasn't always as easy as it should have been. And from there, then they had to print it off and go pick it up from the printer, then go back to their equipment and start setting up. And this all hinges on the idea that the document that they wind up finding is up to date. And so you can see that people aren't going to go through that kind of trouble unless they're really stuck. Now that we have Dozuki, we've been able to do a lot of really cool things. One of the things we're really excited about that we've been working on is including a help button on the touchscreen for the different pieces of equipment that you click the help button and it takes you right to the Dozuki page that has all the information for that specific piece of equipment in that plan, whether it's videos on how to set it up, how to tear it down, troubleshoot, clean it, anything that you want to know that we've built around that equipment is on that page, and that's just huge for us. Ultimately, we're really excited about Dozuki. It's been a game changer for us to be able to get the information that people need in a way that's really visual instead of pictures and text, which is still a possibility, but just unlocking that potential of video that people can see the method of what they're supposed to be doing right there where the work is being done, where the information's needed with very little effort to have to go and search it out. It's so impactful for us.
Okay, who can, in the chat, even though you've never worked for this company and probably have no idea what they do, who could tell me some of the before version of the infomercial, things that you heard? Was anyone dialed in and paying attention?
So someone in chat said, streaming, finding information required for task, accessibility, up-to-date information, usability, instant info at your fingertips, frustrated, time waste, finding information, wasting lots, hard to find docs. It was Google Docs, had to leave the workstation. Can I take a stab at this?
Yeah.
What was it before? Workers would make mistakes. Afterward, they were more informed and made less mistakes.
Yeah, so Ryan, when you make a mistake making a sausage, for instance, you don't know how to run the machine the right way, you don't know how to break it down, you don't know how to set it up, what terrible thing happens?
You lose money.
How?
You have to throw out the sausages.
Yes. What else could happen? Imagine if you're doing it the wrong way to a sausage.
Yeah, you could get someone sick.
Yes.
They could be liable. I think those are kind of the basic ones, right?
Yeah, contamination, right? So before, what people were having to do is they're making a lot of sausage, which means small mistakes can add up quickly. A small mistake. Where did I get that language, Ryan?
From that case study from the customer.
Yeah, I didn't write it.
Right.
You're going to see how we're going to use this in the email in a second. That's going to be our truth statement to another sausage company, Jimmy Dean. We're going to open up our email that says, hey, Jimmy Dean, you make a lot of sausage, which means small mistakes can add up really quickly. Did I write that? Did I come up with that, Jim? Nope. The customer did, right? So here's some of the detail, right? I have to find the instructions. It's a lengthy process. And when it's a lengthy process, Ryan, you missed one, which is I got to stop production. If I'm not sure what to do, I got to stop the assembly line. Ryan, what terrible thing happens when the assembly line for a sausage company stops?
You stop producing product, which means you stop making money.
Yeah, and God forbid people in America don't get their sausage. It's an outrage. We can't have this in this country. So they're going to find a computer, document printing it off, picking it up for the printer, going back. Document might be not up to date. I get the wrong instructions. And then after Dozuki, they walk around with these iPads. They get the most up-to-date instructions. So there's no meat waste. Ryan nailed this. So there's lower risk of food contamination. There's no pausing the production. Remember, that's the awesome thing I can do after. Here's the thing to write down. People don't care about what your product does. They care about what your product can do for them that they cannot currently do. So you'll notice in all of these emails, we're really not mentioning the product that much, how it works. We're only mentioning the awesome result that you can get out of it. We're going to save the how it works for the conversation when we actually get people on the phone. Here's the sort of diagram you can kind of map out for yourself, right? We got a person. They got a job they want to get done. Keep it simple. The job never changes. They're always going to want to make sausage. I'm always going to want to run a marathon. Ryan is always going to want to. What are you into, Ryan? I don't know. What are your hobbies? What are your?
I've been skateboarding a lot lately due to COVID. Little activity.
So Ryan's always going to want to skateboard. How he skateboards is going to change, right? He might want a new skateboard. He might go to different things. He might do different things. So what sucks is the stuff we mentioned. It's slow. I don't know how to use the machines. The reason that sucks is contamination, slow production line. What's better? Sausages with no waste. So now that we understand the infomercial, and people like Ryan have already made the infomercial for you. Remember, I haven't gotten any product training. Doesn't matter. I could do this in 5 minutes working for any new company, right? So here's what we'll do next. We'll pick a similar company, Jimmy Dean Sausage, and we'll pick the same title as that guy that we just saw in the other sausage video, because they probably care about the same things, just like Marathon, right? I'm niching down to sausage people. It's personal, but it's not personalized. You see what I'm doing here? I'm niching down. I'm not saying everybody that has machines. So for Ryan's example, if I wanted to write Ryan a cold email, one way to do it would be people that are active. But then if I got a smaller circle, I would say people that are active that are over 30 and under 40. And then if I got a smaller circle, I would say people that are active that like to skateboard, that picked it up during the pandemic. And as soon as you're more relevant, what ends up happening is, as famous copywriter Robert Collier said, you're joining the conversation in someone's head. And they feel like you're actually talking to them. The reaction the prospect has is, oh my God, they get me. And the natural reaction is, what do you have? The only way to do that is to niche it down. Personal, but doesn't have to be personalized. Okay, so let's actually write the email using the same exact 4T structure, nice and slow. We're going to actually pick 3 or 4 people in that company, similar title, at Jimmy Dean, and we're going to write the 4T email. So, subject, scrapped meat. Truth statement. You guys make a lot of sausage, which means small mistakes can add up quickly. And again, I didn't write that line. I just got that from the testimonial video. Your customers are better at writing cold emails than we are as salespeople. What can we ask to make people think differently? We want to evoke the, I'm not sure. How are you reducing mistakes caused by incorrect mean shot? I'm not sure. How am I doing that? What am I doing to do that with? Is that as good as it could be? Right? Again, these are not leading questions. They are getting people to think differently about how they're getting the job done today. They're shining a light on what terrible thing might be happening. And then the third-party validation, right? The bandwagon effect, it's called in psychology circles. People like to do what other people are doing. They want to know who's in the know. Johnson, that's a competitor of ours, someone similar to us, not Walmart. Ryan, why aren't I mentioning Walmart? They're a big customer. Why not mention them?
Because when I look at the mirror, I'm a sausage company, not a retailer.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan's one of the best marketers that I've ever met in my life. He knows this better than anyone. Like Ryan doesn't sell lead IQ. He doesn't sell data. What Ryan is selling is getting people better at prospecting so they can start more conversations. Like Ryan knows he's not selling barbecues, he's selling master grillers, right? It's the same exact thing and the genius behind what Ryan does, right? So again, I'm not talking about how they do it. So here's the magic formula. You do X and Y happens. You do X, you press a button, and all these benefits happen. And here's the magic copywriting secret words that I want you to write down in your notes. The word no and the word without, because it shows contrast. So Ryan, I'm going to put you on the spot again. There was a great documentary on Netflix. This guy, Alex Hanal, I think his name was, he climbed El Capitan.
Yeah.
And the advertisement said, watch Alex Hanan climb El Capitan without ropes. Now, Ryan, why was the word without ropes the thing that got my attention?
Because lots of people have climbed that with ropes, and it's a unique thing to do. It means it's life-threatening. It's interesting.
Yes. So everyone's clean. Everyone's getting the job done today, right? How do we show contrast? We use these magic words, without and no. So watch Alex Hanal, I'm butchering his last name, watch Alex Hanal climb El Capitan without ropes. Without ropes? You can't do that. Athletic Greens, which is a powder that I get, my wife bought me not too long ago. The advertisement in the carton, it said, get 75 vegetables without having to eat them. How do I do that? So get the job done, but without having to do all the sucky things like walking, right? So using these words, no walking, to the document management system and printing, how do they do that? We're not going to tell them. We're going to create what's called an open loop. So if you've ever watched Netflix and you've ever watched Queen's Gambit or any other thing on Netflix, Ryan, what do they do during like the last 3 or 30 seconds of every one of these series? What do they do?
They get you watching the next series, right?
How do they do it?
They sneak it in autoplay and show you a little preview of it.
They leave you hanging.
Yeah.
They kind of like leave you hanging a little bit, right? So brains are hardwired to close loops. George Lowenstein out of Carnegie Mellon calls this the information gap. Brains crave closure. If I said to Ryan, I'm going to tell you a story. A friend of mine woke up in a hotel with an IV in his arm. Ryan's going to want to know what the hell happened.
Tell me, what are you doing?
Right. So what I'm doing here is I'm using these psychological copywriting principles in email. That's just how brains are wired. If we tell everybody the whole end of the story, there's no reason to tune back in. And ultimately what we're trying to do in these cold emails is not necessarily book the meeting, but to create enough curiosity where people are leaning forward a little bit. So that's the purpose of that green sentence there. And the formula, if you want to write down your notes, is you do X and Y happens. Let me give you a couple of other examples. Uber versus a taxi. Friday at 5 o'clock, hard to get a cab, especially if it's raining and snowing. How are you going to make sure you're not late to your meeting? With Uber, you press a button, and in 15 minutes, a Mercedes takes you to where you want to go. You want to learn how? Let me show you another one for a washing machine. The washing machine, you put dirty clothes in a magic box, and in 45 minutes, they come out clean. I'm not talking about how it happens, but that's the formula, right? Without you having to scrub them for an hour. What do you mean? How do you do that? We're creating the curiosity. That's what we're trying to do here. So again, the truth, the think, the third-party validation, and the talk. It's 4 sentences.
Josh, just to add something, hopefully it doesn't derail it, but think about it from this perspective. Imagine reading an email where you're talking about all the different tumbling and trying to explain the abstract features of a washing machine.
And this is the thing that I loved about when Ryan and I were talking about this, is we were seeing a lot of this in emails. And then Ryan and I kind of said, we pointed the finger back at ourselves. And this is why I love working with Ryan, which is like, that's on us, man. Like, we need to teach people. Now, there's lots of structures, but we're going to teach you one framework that's going to stack the odds in your favor for not vomiting that at people. Because to Ryan's point, when you vomit that, you confuse people. And when you confuse people, you lose people. They just can't, it's too many calories to figure stuff out. So we want to kind of keep these a little tighter and create some curiosity. Here's another example, because I want to burn in a lot of examples so you can actually get this in the brain. So I'm a triathlete training for an Ironman race. There I am at the top left. For those that are not in the know, an Ironman is an event where you swim 2.4 miles, bike 112 miles, and then run a marathon all in succession. It's a nutty thing. And so the job that I have to be done is I have to bike, run, and swim a lot. The problem if you have a family, what sucks is that it's 20 hours of training a week. Now I'm going to ask the group, if I have a family and a job, why does that suck? Me having to train 20 hours a week.
Time away from the family, less time with the family, don't have enough time, you miss family events, you have to sacrifice something.
Some great answers. Well, I can speak from experience on this. it creates a tremendous amount of stress in your relationships. You're going to bed at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You're sleeping in on Sundays. You lose your Sundays. You're starving when you get back from your bike ride, so you're eating everything in the refrigerator, and then you're taking a nap and you're not telling your wife. So it comes time for dinner. She wants to cook dinner, and there's nothing in the refrigerator. That sucks. But that's the only way I know how to get the job done. Just like the running person, just like the Dozuki, just like the car cane guy, just like the sneakers. This is why prospecting is so awesome, because I sure would like to know if there was a way to feel confident getting to the start line and finishing it, but without what, Ryan?
Without having to ignore your family and have to deal with that pain.
It's a selfish sport. So wouldn't it be great if there was a trainer that could actually get this done in 10 hours instead of 20 so I can get my Sundays back? Well, it turns out that I was notified of one of those, and I hired him. My radar wasn't even on him. Just like your prospect's radar isn't on them. It's not about how he does it. It's about what he can do for me. So let me share with you the email, same exact formula. You're going to see the formula. It's the car cane formula, right? So I have a race coming up, the truth statement. Ironman Cozumel in 12 weeks. So everybody doing Ironman Cozumel in 12 weeks, which is publicly available, you can send this email to. It's personal, but it's not personalized to each individual person. So now we're going to ask a question to get someone to think differently about how they're getting the job done today. So how are you balancing work, family life with long training weeks? Oh, how am I doing that? It's kind of stressful. Notice I'm not saying we sell this, we optimize your run by X. It's a neutral question, just aimed at getting me to think differently about how I'm getting the job done today. Third-party validation. Athletes are using a different method to start 144.6 races. Let me break that down a little bit because that's a little jargony. It's not for triathletes. So it's okay to use lingo if it's the lingo your audience uses. That's the distance of the race. With confidence and finishing strong, and there's that magic word, without. How do I do that without spending 20 hours? What do you mean? Get my Sundays back. All problems have two different versions, the business problem and the personal problem, as Ryan eloquently pointed out, and a lot of people in the chat. The business problem is less training a week, 10 hours. The personal problem is time with my family. Same with your prospects. Sometimes they're using software and processes that are causing them to spend 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week. They lose their Sundays too. They're losing their dinner time too. When I worked with Ultrix and I did customer interviews and watched customer testimonial stories, people were saying that. They basically said, I was able to get home in time for dinner and spend time with my family. You message that as how people feel. You're going to make people feel differently. Ryan talks about this all the time. Prospecting is about how you make people feel. And getting their Sundays back is a great example of, God, dude, I'm sleeping in on Sundays. I sure would like to get them back so my relationship isn't strained. And then I'm going to tease them. It's called the 10-hour-a-week Ironman. What is that? Open to learning how they're doing it. And now I'm introducing another copywriting technique into the mix here. That is what I call icing on the cake, not required. Don't force this. This is called the peak end rule. So I'm going to quiz Ryan again. Ryan, why do you think it is that when you go to a concert back before the pandemic, the artists always save the best song for like the last?
So you want to come back next time?
Yeah, it's called the peak end rule. You remember the concert based on the last song, how they left you feeling at the end. Even though there might have been some crappy parts during the beginning, you like that last song, dude. You don't even think about songs that you might not have liked. So what we're doing at the end here is we're using the peak end rule. So you could say either way or regardless. Remember, pain is temporary, but Instagram photos last a lifetime. Now, where did I get that line from? What I did is I typed in memes for triathletes. And I got some of these interesting things that are sort of like insider humor for this particular persona. And this is one that kept coming up. And that's just going to make someone feel good. And it also subconsciously says, there's no pressure here. The word either way and the word regardless and the words not sure if it's a fit subconsciously tell the brain there's no pressure here. Whenever people feel the pressure and they feel the push in an email or on a cold call, they pull away. So do you, and so does everyone. It's like that feeling you get when you're in the mall and the aggressive kiosk person says, can I ask you a question? You kind of know where it's coming. So I work really hard in everything that I teach and write to teach people how to diffuse the pressure on a cold call, because words matter. They carry weight. So I'm really big on using words that reduce the pressure, because the fear that prospects has is the fear of you. The fear of you moving faster than they want to move.
Hey, Josh, I have two questions really quick that have come up, if that's cool.
Yeah.
So one of the questions someone says, is it better to use the 4 T's for a persona or an industry?
So I like it. So you're not selling to an industry. You're selling to people that have a job to be done. This is how I want you to think about it. And if you want to learn on this, the way I learned how to sell is not by thinking like a seller. I learned how to sell by getting immersed in an approach called jobs to be done, which is based on how people buy, which is very different than how people sell. So learn about the jobs that a group of people are trying to get done and the progress that they're trying to make. Because that's all people want to do, is just make a little progress. They want to get from point A to point B. Your job is to shine a light on what they might not know about that can hurt them or what's possible. So it's not about an industry, it's about a job. What are the jobs that people are trying to get done? These types of people. Did that answer the question, Ryan? Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Another question that we have, someone was asking, what if you're a smaller startup and you're just building out your case studies and marketing/social proof? We have a legit product with some big clients. How do you recommend I use the 3 Ps when we don't have a lot of names we can drop publicly?
So a couple ways. So the first thing I want you to do is make sure you interview those customers using something called jobs to be done. We don't have time to get into that, but you guys can Google it. I sell some stuff on it, but there's some free stuff on the internet if you want. To interview all of the struggles that people had and the events and circumstances that led them to purchase, right? And then without leading a company or not leading a person, you could do what I did in this one, which is I said athletes. People like this, people like skateboarders in their 30s that are starting to skateboard during the pandemic, like Ryan's going to read that because he's going to think that's me.
Yeah.
If Ryan read athletes, not going to read it. If Ryan read people in their 30s that are marketers working for tech companies that are just now starting to skateboard, you see what that's an extreme example. But if you think of it like a bullseye, athletes is on the outside. Triathletes is a little closer. Triathletes that are over 50 is closer. Triathletes over 50 with families that are trying to do Ironmans is the bullseye. So the idea here is the niching down is what gives you the pop. It's what I call being crispy or specific. Did that answer that question, Ryan, here?
Yep, definitely. All right, I just wanted to answer those questions real quick. Do you want to keep going, Josh? I feel bad.
Yeah, I'll show you guys a couple more. Unless we have any more questions, we can do a couple more or keep going. Up to you, Ryan.
Someone just said, the last 40 minutes, best use of my time in a while. How do I hire you? And that was Eric.
All right, Eric, that's going to be coming in like 6 minutes. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to give you guys a cool offer in a second. So
I will let you keep going. Yeah.
Glad you liked it. So this is just like a couple of examples, right? Some emails that I've gotten. Josh's taxes. I'm opening that. Tax day in 13 weeks. That's just a fact for everybody that is a small business like me doing taxes. Now, this is a great question. How do you know your accountant is utilizing every opportunity in tax law to get you? Eric Mendelson's my accountant. I don't know if he's like up to date on stuff. What do these guys know that I don't know, that he doesn't know? These guys booked a meeting with me, sending this email. I'm a Florida business owner. Look at this word, Ryan. This is another magic word I want to test you on. I love working with Ryan on this because he's so freaking quick. The word different. What is the psychology behind that word? Different tax smart method. What is the psychology behind the word different from a copywriting perspective?
It makes me think that I could do something that other people aren't doing.
Yeah, it's one of those curiosity words. So here's the words I like, if you want to write these down. Different, unconventional, unusual, lesser known, right? Like these are words like, what is this different thing? Like, we don't have time for cold calls right now, but I use a lot of these approaches when I cold call as well. And then there's the awesome thing that I could do after. Get 25 to 50K back on average. Look at that. There's that magic copywriting phrase, no one without, no fee until I get you at least 10K. And then look at that low pressure language. I don't claim to know your business, but is this worth a conversation? Sure. Captivate IQ. So the biggest problem that bigger sales organizations have, a lot of people, everyone's got different commissions, very manual process to pay people out. Pain in the ass. Spreadsheets and different formulas. These guys make that go away. One of their case studies, right? Sawn and Cranes, you're doubling your sales teams. How are you? Blah, blah, blah. Managing comp plans as you scale. How are you doing that? Spreadsheets? What are these guys doing? There's that formula. With X, you do Y. With Captivate, you can calculate, run, and send commission statements in minutes instead of hours. Probably would have been better if it said instead of hours. And then there's those magic words again. Well, I'm doing that now. Without having to do all this stuff, these guys are saving how many hours a month? And then I got this pink line. I stole it from this guy, John Bouchon. I used it with his permission. He's a comedian. And he signs off his emails awaiting your fair but stern reply. And that always makes me laugh. Even though I've seen it a bunch of times. Use it if you want. It's in pink because it's like a little cherry on top. Sometimes people will smile at that. And to Ryan's point, and he taught me this, and I'll never forget it, the first time I met him. He said something to me that stuck with me. When you make people feel good, they want more of you. And it's so true. So if someone just has a reaction like that was kind of funny. There's sometimes what I'll get back is, this is my fair reply. They'll play along a little bit with it. There's another version of this that's a little bit more brash, which is awaiting your profanity-filled response that John Bouchon uses as well. And again, you might think that your prospects, you can't do that. They're C-level executives. Orion talks about this. There are also people watching Netflix. Nobody doesn't like to laugh. Everybody likes to smile. So these little kind of sprinkles ins of either ways and awaitings are not nothings if you can find them and not force them. You don't want to say either way, have a good day. That doesn't have the pop. But either way, remember, pain is temporary, but the Instagram photo lasts a lifetime. That does have the pop. Okay, shameless plug. What I've done, because people have a hard time writing this, is I sell something called the Badass B2B Growth Guide. It's not a subscription. It's a one-time fee. It's got tons of examples of how to write emails, and more importantly, actual emails with positive response rates from tons of sales reps using this approach, as well as cold call scripts, voicemail scripts, LinkedIn messages, direct mail. And what I've done is I've actually created story starters for each of these things, phrases that you can actually lift and put right into your emails. So think statements, truth statements, third-party value statements, and talk statements. You just plug them in. The way you get to it is you go to joshbraun.com and you click the link on the top called Badass Guide. You can read about how it's made other salespeople more awesome, and you can decide if you'd like to invest in it. Ryan, would love to open it up for questions. That's all I got for us today.
Thanks, Josh. That was great. One question that came up twice. We had two people ask, can you talk about the subject lines a little bit? I can give some stuff too on this.
Go ahead, Ryan. You start.
So a lot of people that are looking at subject lines when you write prospecting emails and stuff, they try and they'll go look at a blog post about this subject line's amazing, use this and stuff. The thing that we've seen that works, it's kind of timeless, is whatever context you're bringing up in the body of your email, use that as your subject line. So in Josh's example, let's say you're selling washing machines. You want to be vague enough to draw curiosity to open the email, but then relate to it in the body of the email. So if I was selling washing machines, I might say clean laundry. No details, not too salesy, just something straight up that's vague enough to draw an interest. And then when I get into the email, you jump into the format that Josh just showed you. What do you think, Josh?
I love that. So another one that I like is sort of problem question mark. So imagine you have a product that solves arthritis question mark. Sausage waste question mark.
That's a good one for the example you gave earlier too. It's industry. It's not industry specific. It's that account specific. Something that's this could be about something with our company, and you're going to be I better open this. It's probably something that it could be really important.
Yeah. I also like your take on this, Ryan. We spoke about this. I don't know if you remember this, but I remember. I don't know if I've told you this, dude. I really value talking to you, man. Every time you and I have a chat, it's awesome. And we spoke a while back about being ethical in subject lines. And you have a really good take on this. I'd love for you to share it, like this idea of like using and trying to trick people. Like, what's your take on it? Because I'd love to bring that up. I think it's a great take.
I think we actually did this on a podcast once or something, but like people try tricks like checking in, contract, like things that are insincere. And if you trick someone, you're going to turn them off to not want to actually work with you, or you're going to hurt your impression with that person, and they're not going to want to interact with you. So the best thing to do is just be honest and be real. Write a subject line that you would want to open. Put yourself in your prospect's shoes. Like that's a big part of thinking about it. Like, how would I feel if I got tricked into opening an email and then I don't even talk about anything in the email?
I couldn't agree more. These words, what we're doing here, the theme to the subject line is creating curiosity. It's the same thing with the email. The purpose of every sentence, I think Joe Sugarman said this, he's another legendary copywriter, is to just get someone to read the next sentence. It's just to get someone to read the next sentence. And I can speak to this, like, I'll just give you guys a small nugget here in 3 minutes that you're going to love. It's a cold calling tactic. So I'll set this up and I'll tell the story in 2 minutes. And you guys might want to write this down, or this is so awesome. So my brother, his name is Jason Braun. He started a company in 2003 called Animal Pharmaceuticals, sells dog and cat products to veterinarians. Started out of the trunk of his car in 2003, sold it 2 months ago for $25 million, didn't have any employees. And I would go with him to watch him sell. And I want to tell you exactly what he did. Of course, he had a good product, et cetera. I want to tell you about his talk track and how much it relates to what you're seeing today. So 7 or 8 years ago, the biggest problem vets had when internet pharmacies started popping up in retailers was people would come into the vet owner would recommend a product, the customer would look at it and say, great, they'd go online and buy it cheaper. Or they go to a mega store, buy it cheaper. And the vet would lose out on the money and lose out on the foot traffic. That sucked. It wasn't like that before, but then it got to be like that. That's like your prospects. Everything's fine, and all of a sudden it's not. Situations change. So my brother came up with a great idea. He called it private labeling. He's going to take his products. He's going to put the vet's label on it. So when they come shop, they say it's made by this vet, private label. They can't really shop it. They trust the vet. They buy it without having to go to an internet pharmacy, a retailer, or a mega store. Change the game for these veterinarians. And this is exactly how he sold it. This was early days. He'd walk into a vet, and this is exactly what he said. Hey, Dr. John, I was just up the street with Dr. Max. He was telling me he's really irked. He makes a recommendation for his products, and pet owners will say thanks, and then they'll actually just buy it online or through mega stores. And I was just curious, like, how are you dealing with that at your clinic? That's kind of that's kind of that same exact, that's kind of the poke the bear question. Now, it's really hard for someone to say after that, I'm not interested. Imagine that on a cold call. Right? It's the same idea. I have another course that I have called Poke the Bear, which teaches this methodology where it's almost impossible for someone to say not interested because you're not launching into a 45-second pitch. What you normally hear is, what are you talking about? Which is what the vet said. And Jason came back to the problem. The problem is, unlike before, these internet pharmacies and retailers are undercutting you, and you're losing on traffic, and that's the problem that we solve. Well, how do you do that? Now the prospect is leaning forward. We got these things called private label, and he showed him the bottle, and one thing led to another, and that was a very successful operation for him. But it's the same idea that we're studying in cold email can be applied to the cold call. And again, it's about poking the bear.
So another question we had is doing this over LinkedIn message. If you change anything up on it, Josh, I honestly think the principles of it apply to any channel and medium you're using for sales.
Yeah, so I love this question. I always love this question because people are always asking me video, email. Here's the thing, man. It's not about the channel. There's great books and there's shitty books. There's great videos, terrible videos. It's the message and the person with the problem that never is going to change. That's timeless. So if you kind of get away from this thinking of channel, some channels there's more prevalence of the prospect on. You could certainly figure that out. But it's never videos good. It's never videos bad. It's never cold calls are good. It's never cold calls are bad. It's always how you're doing it. And absolutely think about the principles that you learned today are valid across every single channel because it's not about the channel. The prospect doesn't care about the channel. The prospect cares about making progress.
one of my favorite things that I learned doing some of the cold email reviews with you, which we're again telling everyone if you joined late, we're going to next week go through some of your examples. So send them. You can send them to ratemypitch@leadiq.com, and we're going to go through those next week and read them and talk about them and show the framework again and remind people. One of the questions that people are asking is like, hey, how do you do this for SaaS? And I think one of the things you need to remember is that like pretty much every software company that's out there is either selling productivity or selling higher revenue. The thing that I love that you talk about, Josh, that we've done these panels before, try and answer the question, so what? Like that's a really good tip, I think. Whatever value prop you have, write it and then say, so what? And then backspace and replace it with whatever that is.
I can't stress this enough. This has nothing to do with SaaS. Let's get back to jobs to be done. We have a person with a job to be done that's making progress. Doesn't have anything to do with SaaS or anything else. Mm-hmm. I got a person that's a runner. The job they want to be done is run a marathon. They're making progress right now in their current sneakers. What do they know? What do you know that they don't know? They might be running in sneakers that are not made for pronated feet, might not be in alignment. It's not a SaaS thing. It's a progress thing. Stop thinking about it from a SaaS and industry and start thinking about a person with a job to be done. Get closer to that. What sucks? Why does it suck? And then poke the bear.
Here's the thing to think about for people listening that are like, oh man, how do I do this with industry and all that stuff? The people you sell to, I say this data point all the time, but the average person works at a job for 18 months and then they change jobs. The people you sell to are not their company. They're a person that goes home, they eat, they watch Netflix, they laugh, they cry, they get in fights, they're human. So like that's why this is such a good effective way of showing this, Josh.
Yeah, and to your point too, Ryan, how do you do it? We just showed you two ways. You read the stuff the marketing department does, the customer success stories and the testimonials. If you don't have them, we showed you another approach at the beginning. You Google top challenges of skateboarders. And you figure out those things that ladder back to how you help, and you just lift the quotes. You don't even, truth be told, in an email, a little bit different on a cold call, you don't really have to know what they mean if you're lifting quotes from customers about what sucked before and why it sucked and what changed for the better after. As you saw, I was writing these emails. I don't really know the product, nor do I have to know the product. So it's not about your industry. It's not about how do I do this for SaaS. It's about looking at the before and after version stories that your customers have. If you don't have any, there's this thing called Google. You just Google top priorities, top challenges of. Another way to do it, I may have learned this from Ryan, I can't even remember, is what webinars are those people attending? What do they care about? What are they downloading? What are the things? Stop thinking about your products and value propositions and start thinking about the progress your prospects are trying to make and what they're bumping into that you know that they don't know. And it's never been easier to do that, right? I know when I was coming up, I couldn't get to there wasn't internet. Like that information's out there.
The other thing to keep in mind with this, so we're kind of peppering in to wind down in a second. Remember, next week we're going to have people send emails in, so you can send emails. Remember this too, like all the examples Josh showed you today, they're not just logic, it's emotional. Like there's logic and emotion, but like that the 10 hours family thing is about emotion. That's about a feeling that you're going to have. And that's like, I'll give you another example. When I worked at Dyn, I remember we were selling web infrastructure for people. We used to ask people in emails like, have you ever been paged in the middle of the night because your network went down and you had to rush to the office? Like, what kind of impact did that have on your life? That's a way more real answer than shooting off about charts about revenue and statistics on like how fast your network is.
Yeah, you remind me of something else that's really great for email. Actually, cold call. There was a rep selling a solution that helped employees make sure that when they hired someone, they weren't leaving automatically. So hiring bad people. And one of the problems, I guess, in this space is you hire people and they leave real fast and you got to replace them. It's an expensive problem. So what he called it in his email was stop playing employee whack-a-mole. See what Ryan just did? He didn't know I was going to say that. You probably might have laughed too, but to Ryan's point, and it's so spot on, when you make people feel something in an email or in a cold call, hey, we call that, whack-a-mole. people are going to laugh and they're going to be like, oh, they're going to lean into that because there's actually a biological reaction of oxytocin in the blood that makes you feel good. And Ryan said this to me, I think, a while back. When you make people feel good, they want more of that thing that made them feel good, which is you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, we'll be emailing you after. There'll be a recording. You're also going to get we'll give you instructions on how to submit an email for next week. We appreciate everyone coming in. Josh, thank you for doing this. You're the man.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity, guys.
Do you have to add anything officially from Sales Hacker? Thanks, Sales Hacker.
Yes, Sales Hacker. Thank you, Sales Hacker. Sales Hacker, you are the prize.
No, we really appreciate y'all. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Don't forget to check out our new RevOps channel. We've got some awesome events coming up as well. And the recording will be sent out within 24 hours, so keep an eye on that. And yeah, just thank you all so much. Thank you, Lead IQ and Josh, and we'll catch y'all next time. Thanks, everyone.
Send me challah. Please send me challah.
I will.
Okay.
Send me your address. I've got you.
See you guys. Thank you very much.
Bye, y'all. Have a good one.